you would judge based on the discussion, mainstream of the discussion in the press in my country, you would conclude that, well, we have special difficulties because of the northern location of our country and so on. But basically I would say that, well, we are on the same planet. So the same climate change that is threatening the whole planet and whole human civilization, it's threatening us also. So I wouldn't emphasize like any special features.
Okay, on the European question, the European Union, a lot depends on who you listen to. There are some EU spokespeople who will say Europe is doing extremely well, are setting trends, they've reduced their carbon emissions by 18%, well on target to reduce by 20%, maybe even more in the future. Others will say, well, negotiations are likely to reach a dead end in relation to hot air, the AAUs, the East can't agree with the West. Where do you stand? Is Europe in a healthy position with regards to climate change at the moment?
Well, basically I would very much hope that EU would be more ambitious than as it's showed itself here in the COP18. So I have followed and been part of the climate negotiations for more than 10 years, and I have learned that negotiators of all countries are very clever to present their own country in the best possible light, and that's sort of the task of the negotiators. Part of all this self-praising is true. It's true that EU has reduced emissions by around 18% compared to 1990 levels. On the other hand, it's also true that almost we are already in our official 2020 target minus 20%. At the moment it seems that the member governments of European Union are unwilling, reluctant to raise our ambition level. Although there are various studies, not made of environmental NGOs, but made by serious economic and scientific institutes, which say that it would actually benefit our economy if we would raise our climate ambition level. It would help our economy, and it would bring 6 million new jobs in Europe if we would increase our ambition level from minus 20 to minus 30% target. And of course the issue of AAUs, that's a hot potato not only in this climate COP as a whole, but it's also a hot potato in whole European Union. And well, as a Green politician, I'm very unhappy for this attitude of Poland, and actually it's also the view of the majority of European Parliament that these carryover AAUs should be cancelled, and also it's the view of the majority of European Union that we should raise our ambition level. Well, a bit more than 1 week ago, the plenary of European Parliament adopted a resolution on these climate negotiations and said that it's in our own interest to raise our climate ambition level to the minus 30% target.
I mean, what if Poland and perhaps other countries, especially in Eastern Europe, refuse to go along with that? I mean, last time I counted, was it 27 countries in the EU? Trying to reach unanimous decisions on anything is difficult. On something as vital, as important, as essential as climate change, can you afford to wait till all member states are on board?
Well, to my mind, not. And actually also in this issue I represent a majority, not just the Greens, but the majority view of European Parliament. The Parliament also stated that the EU Council, which means the gang of EU governments, should stop this practice of deciding everything concerning international climate negotiations unanimously, and move to our normal decision-making procedure, which is qualified majority. And there is no legal basis in the EU primary legislation which would dictate this unanimity practice. It's just an old bad habit, I would say. And I really think that we should stop this.
What's the minimum you would hope for out of this COP18 negotiations by, or the day after tomorrow, by Friday? I mean, even if it's agreed, the second commitment period of Kyoto Protocol is agreed, is it even worth the paper it's written on, given that so many countries are not signed up to it?
Well, basically, I think that the most important issue which should be discussed and on which there should be some vision when we leave this COP is how to raise the ambition level not just of the EU target, but as a whole. We should take seriously the message from climate science and from the UNEP report, which was published recently, that the so-called gigaton gap, the gap between where we should be 2020 if we follow the advice of climate science and where we seem to be going, this gigaton gap is only growing. And so the main issue should be how we close this gigaton gap by 2020. And there should be like some kind of preliminary vision. Instead, we are negotiating trillions of all kind of details, which some of them are more important and some of them are less important, some of them just symbolic, I would say, but the main issue is hardly discussed at all. So I really very much would hope that not just EU, but also other major players like USA and China would tell their vision about how this gigaton gap, which is like the crucial thing for the whole future of all of us, how this gap would be closed.